Hello.
Hi Casey, it's Georgie. So am I calling you from the space in Avenue de l'Opera?
Yes, I'm just at my office.
Got the lovely views.
It's so beautiful today. It's going to be this amazing weekend
Oh
here. I'm
my
so
gosh, I think
excited.
with us too.
Cool.
But let's talk a little bit about the most recent collection. Super exciting. But before we dive into that, I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
So you were named creative director in, I think it was December 2017.
I was announced in December and then started in January.
Fantastic. And tell me a little bit about that period and kind of coming into the role and diving into the archive, because I know I've
Yeah.
spoken to you a little bit before about being a kid in a candy store in the archive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I worked on coming here for maybe a year before I came. Just like the process of doing the project and the interviews to get the job. I really did as much research as I could and went through as much as I could. And then when I actually got to come here and begin, I had the chance to, I was confused about how the archive was. I kind of thought that I could just go there and like casually look through it. And it's all like kind of stored in specific ways. So it's not so easy to just like, take a flick. So there's like I get to just give a picture of what I want or a screen grab from a video or whatever it is. And then they get to come on a visit to the office. So they get brought from the facility to here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they show up and then they get wheeled in on the rack. It's like very dramatic. They get brought into the studio and everyone jumps up from their desk and, goes through everything. And then we have our fit model come and we try it on. Some things are, very delicate and have to have a white glove, and some things, because some of the dresses are, 35 years old. And some of them are, have 10 kilos of embroidery on a chiffon dress, and it's like just self-destructing. There's different things need different care.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
then we get to put them on, take pictures of them, get to see them walk in person, and it's just a different thing because you get to see them alive and you get to see them, not in a picture from the 80s where they look good, but you can't tell what the fabric is. Everything becomes extremely clear and how it's been cut. So there's so much more information when you see it in person. And that layer of information is actually part of what makes me the most inspired, because I get to see, what kind of magic was done to make the hip look like that. And, how has it been reinforced to stand up like that? And, oh my God, it's plastic inside. Or, oh my God, this is one piece cast out of whatever. There's always something that's a surprise about it.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's really.
I can't believe they reveal all these different secrets every time you see
Yeah,
something.
I never really thought about that. I thought I understood them from the photographs, and sometimes you do, sure, but yeah, there's a layer of information missing from the pictures.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I feel like you're. I hope you don't mind me saying. I feel like you're such a perfect match for Mugler because. Am I right in saying you've got an architecture degree?
Yes, I have always like bounced around into different parts of design. When I was young, I guess I first wanted to be a scientist, so that doesn't really count. And then I went and I got obsessed with rocks and minerals, and then that ended up making me into a kid that went to the local jewelry store all the time and asked about rocks. And one day the guy was like, "What are you in here all the time for, kid?" and then he ended up. I said, "Oh, I want to be a jeweler," and he was like, "Oh." So then I ended up working for him for 8 years. And then I wanted to be an automobile designer and then an industrial designer. And then I went to architecture school at Cornell, which is like a really intense 5-year architecture program. Only 20 people to 30 people graduate per year because everyone else drops out because it's insane. But it's one of the best architecture schools in the U.S. Yeah, and then I graduated from there. And many people go there and then end up not doing architecture because it teaches you more about the process of designing and about how to express an idea. And then it becomes clear to you that you can use these skills to kind of make anything or present any kind of story in a way. So I see very little difference between designing a building and designing a jacket. You're still working with experienced builders, you're still working with, to find the best materials and the best construction details to, come to the correct end. And so we experience architecture and furniture and clothing very differently, but at the same time, they're all meant to house us in different ways. So for me, it's all the same.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's very serendipitous that you have an architecture degree and you're working for one of the most iconic brands known for their architectural curves and structures. I just think that's a match made in heaven.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, Mugler is about the magic that happens when, like, a curve or a line that's been built meets with the curve of the body. I mean, that's really where the magic is. And I think that quickly, it's funny because I've always worked at places that are about that. I mean, I spent most of my upbringing in design working for Narciso Rodriguez, who is all about beautiful cuts and making women look good. And I feel and he does it in such a modern, pure way. And I feel like Mugler did it in a much more audacious way. And it's about it being very shock. It's supposed to make you have your mouth drop when you see it. Whereas Narciso is much more subtle and intellectual, and I think Mugler is much more kaboom. And so it's actually very fun for me to take these things that I learned and now really take them to a very different extreme. So for me, it's actually, it's a really exciting time for me.
Absolutely.
Because I get to like, and I can kind of feel myself growing into it more and more. Like, no, that's not big enough. Like, actually, I want the hip to stick out way much more than that. And in the beginning, I was like, whoa, that hip's already pretty big. and now I feel like with my second year here, now I'm like, all right, come on, let's bring it. Like, now I feel more ready. I got to kind of like walk into the water slowly. And because I think with Mugler, it's so strong, it can just eat you up. Like the aesthetic could totally bury me, especially if I was in a place where I wanted to just copy him, which I think is a very natural tendency because the work is so beautiful and is so powerful. But I think that's really this very delicate analysis that I'm doing is like, what is me and what has he laid down as groundwork that is something that I want to carry forward, and how do I make it, personal to me, and at the same time, that's something that pays homage to his work at this, it's so in the end I'm trying to connect more to the sculpting and to what they do to someone and what the spirit of that is. And, it's all about making a woman feel so confident and so assured. It's a woman who's already pretty confident, I guess, but then she gets kind of supercharged by these clothes. So there's many different ways to achieve that.
Yeah. You absolutely felt that with the Autumn Winter 19 collection. I felt like even if you weren't necessarily the most confident character, you would put that on. I felt like there was something that anyone could put on and feel like rocket fuel had just been injected,
I really think that is something that he really set out, and something that for me is a very exciting possibility. And I mean, in the end, that's really what I want to do. I want to make people feel great. I want to make them have a good day at work, or it's about these clothes lifting you up and giving you this extra confidence. And I think, and I see it happen a lot. Like, I see it when women put on the jackets that we've been doing. They kind of pick up their shoulders and they change their body position, and they're kind of turned on in this way. And that's, I mean, I find that that's a great reward for me, that someone kind of gets a lift. I mean, that's the whole point.
So rewinding you back a little bit to the beginnings of Autumn Winter 19. So we're talking about empowering this woman, and do you start with kind of imagining a woman or a character, or is it kind of taking it back to architectural lines, or back into the archive, or where do you start?
So I have a kind of a multi-pronged approach. I always start by looking at the archive, and I also start by getting the heck out of the office. So this last season, I mean, I tend to try to, since I'm American and I'm in Europe, I feel this need to travel to different cities that I haven't been to, or even ones that I have been to, as much as possible. It's kind of like living in New York and taking a flight to Chicago or Miami is like, here you can go to Vienna or Rome or, to Morocco, and it's like completely different. experience, and you get to go to different museums from different cultures. And I don't know, I try to get out of here as much as possible. And so this season, I went to Rome on like a family vacation and went to the Vatican Museum actually, and found all of these things. I'm always on the hunt for very extreme texture, I guess is a way of generalizing it. You can kind of see it on my Instagram. I kind of realized when I looked at my own Instagram, I'm like, oh yeah, you're really obsessed with like, you know, like marble,
Textures.
like mineral textures, or like textures of coral, or textures of like ancient Roman glass, or textures that are swirling through new acetate, or I don't know. I also went to Tokyo for a week, and I was looking at like really old ceramics and bronzes and all of these weird, amazing hand carved textures, and especially like these lacquer textures. So basically, I just am moving around and I'm taking pictures of everything and collecting them. And then at a certain point, I remember, oh my God, I have 5,000 pictures on my phone that I haven't gone through. And it takes me like a day, but then I print everything off of my phone and I make these boards in my office. And they tend to be quite, my jump, like basically what I'm trying to do is get myself full of juice, let's say. Like I get my creative flowing and I fill myself with ideas that maybe aren't even about fashion, but they get me excited. And then through these sort of abstract things, I start to think about fabric developments or embroideries and different things. And then I start to kind of, I don't know, mix that together with maybe some things that I remembered from the shape of the hip of a certain dress, but I want to make it into a jacket, or the feeling that I got from a certain pair of trousers that he did or something. And it just kind of, what if we made it in this crazy, rubber technique that we're developing? Or what if we overprinted that and then embossed it and then printed it again? Like I start to kind of jump around. And I think that that's really what gave birth to the fall show, is this very personal approach to fabric development, which I'm like notorious for. Like,
yeah, I was going to say that you could tell the fabric development it's super experimental, and you guys really had fun with it.
Yeah, it's something that really, really gets me. I love working on embroidery. I love working on prints, and I love working directly with mills to, so we first of all, we make all of our prints in-house by hand. We do them sometimes physically and photograph them, or sometimes we paint them and then Photoshop them to death. And we work on them for quite a while. And last season was was really complicated. We had boards and boards and boards of different options. And in the end, it was hard to pick. And I still had like 16 prints, and trust me, like you're supposed to have 2. So people were like, "You're gonna edit these down?" I'm like, "This is edited."
Maybe.
I'm like, don't make me edit it anymore. But that's what it was meant to be.
I love those prints, though. You can, sorry to interrupt you. You're talking about kind of seeing all these amazing textures, but you can really see that in the collection. There was some, I believe there were kind of shoes that merged into kind of a flounce skirt, but it looked like Murano glass.
Yeah. There's this glass reference is actually one picture that I took in the Vatican Museum of these 4 different fragments of ancient Roman glass. They're even older than the Murano stuff, and they are the most complicated swirling things, and they actually only look like they've been rendered with a computer. It's the most bizarre thing. And
I couldn't believe it was a print. I can't believe.
Yeah, and that's what's fun about it, is it has this like amazing warp, and we did it on so many different types of materials that I think when you watch the show, it's confusing because sometimes it's transparent, sometimes it's on something glossy, sometimes it's been overprinted. So it becomes a little bit. This is actually one of the main things I wrote to myself as one of the goals. Is I wrote material development to the point that you don't know what it is anymore, because you have these like moments in the beginning where I like have the really clear idea at the beginning and I don't, and then I'm like really deep into the collection, and by being able to like go back to the beginning and be like, oh yeah, you said that in the beginning, like are you still doing it, or did you forget? I think that's an important thing to ask. Yeah,
that's important. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you were telling me about all these travels and prints and glass and textures, and then rewind to the beginning of our conversation. You're talking about your obsession with rocks and minerals, and
totally.
I love how personal this collection is, and we've just kind of taken you taken you through pre-architecture and now on your holidays. And also I feel like some of the jewelry had some almost rocks and organic elements to it as well, so I love how personal.
Yeah, the jewelry was actually peppers that had been cast in resin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I never would have guessed.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because some of the peppers are like kind of wet. But if you like look at it hard, it's like a special little kind of pepper that's almost shaped like a midget heirloom tomato. And I was really obsessed with the shape of them, so we worked from those. So yeah, I think that's the thing about Mugler, is that I had this moment when I realized that he did whatever he wanted. He was very much a person who had dreams and thoughts in his head, and he just did them. And when there are these moments where I'm like, oh, like what really makes it Mugler to like be now here and to not be him? Like, what makes it real? And the point is, it's a platform where like that explosivity and that kind of limitlessness just needs to go in any direction that it needs to go. I mean, there are so many things about, representing different cultures and different types of people and making everyone feel a part of this brand and being really democratic. Yes. But then there's also just like, do what you got to do and just get it out there. And I think that freedom is something that I started to really feel here. So I'm really excited that I found myself here.
Yes, for sure. Made your mark on Mugler.
Yeah.
And I actually think the first and the last looks of the collection really kind of embody that. You've got the first 3 looks, I believe, really kind of beautifully tailored and fit into the body, and the last look is this wonderfully flowing, slightly more effeminate. Yeah. And I feel like that's just this wonderful story of. I can't wait to see the next first and last.
Thank you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think a lot about what's first and what's last, and there was one part of the show that was meant to be this really decadent, you don't know what it is texture, and then the other half was supposed to be hyper minimal and super clean, so that there was always this dialogue between things that were like black and sculpted and tailored, and then other parts that were much more confusing looking. But yeah, I think there's also something to be said about, like, I think women today can feel also very confident in things that are very sort of loose and flowing instead too. So I've been trying to not just be super bodycon and hardcore all the time, but also to have these moments of like ease.
Thank you so much for speaking to me, Casey. It was an absolute pleasure to chat to you about your collection.
It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you. I get to relive a little bit of last season as I'm striving forward with the next.
Yes, brilliant. Well, good luck with the next one. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend.
See you soon.
Bye.
Okay.